Hi, welcome. I'm Barbara Swift. You're watching Be Swift Art. Today we're continuing on with the Great Egret painting that we started. So far we've done motion marks, we've done some of the masking fluid on it. So today we're going to take off the masking fluid and we're going to start doing some of the background. We're going to do the vine that's kind of twisty behind it, and I'll show you some pictures of that vine. Also, we're going to do some little flowers and some little just illustrative vines coming down, and also kind of like a wash with a lot of different colors, granulating paint in the background. That's going to be all behind the egret itself. So before we take the masking fluid off, we'll do that. Take the masking fluid off, and then we're going to do all those little fine plumage feathers. They're little tiny little feathers. Well, there's a lot of them. So we're going to start on that too. All right, so I hope you're painting along with me. If you are, show me what you're painting. I have a Facebook group that I'd love to invite you to join. It's called Creative Water Art Club on Facebook. It's just a brand new group. We're just getting started, but I think I have like 20 members so far, so we need lots more. And on there, my intentions are to share different watercolor techniques, different things that we found out about, just whatever's inspiring us, or any questions that we have, or any concerns that we're trying to figure out. So that's a good place that we can all share our ideas and work with each other. And then I can also let you know there what we're working on as far as the YouTube videos. So that's Creative Watercolor Art Club on Facebook. All right, so if you're painting along with me, get your stuff out because we're going to get started. Come on. I'm getting ready to start my background. And as you can see, I have my bird all masked off. And then here at the top, I have some foliage, that pathos, and some resurrection fern, and then another little vine with some flowers coming down. And so this is the very top here. And as I said, this is a very long painting. So there's my bird and all my little motions, strokes in there. And then I have some more of my big pathos leaves here. And I have here where he's standing on the twisted vine of this pathos. So here's my vine, and he's kind of twisting all up the side of them. I don't know if you can see that. I got it kind of drawn in here. So I'm doing a layered look. So I want you to be able to see my process as I'm painting this. In some areas, some places I'm going to make more of the details and define everything, especially in my bird, but in the background I want it to be loose and just kind of layers of watercolor where you can see it just kind of going right on top of it. And this is as far out as I can get my camera to go, so I'm going to bring this down here so you can kind of see where I'm going to start from. So I'm not going to do too much in the leaves on the bottom, but I'm going to kind of center it and see what happens. I'm going to use this great big Chinese brush. It's very long, as you can see, and very long bristles. And I'm going to use this because I think it's going to make me paint very loosely. So this is kind of a little bit nerve-wracking, I will admit. Little scared, but I'm standing behind my painting and I got my nice long brush. And here's all of these feathers. Oh, let me move them up a little bit. There we go. So here's all of those long feathers you can see here. And that's where it needs to be dark mostly, because I want those feathers to show up really fine, very lacy. And I'm going to do that with really teeny tiny fine long brush. And I got the masking fluid on here, so it's, just kind of a let's just go for it. Let's go see what's going to happen. So I don't think anything horrible can happen. So I'm going to kind of try to figure it going on an angle, and it's going to stop where these vines are going up my side here. So I'm going to use a super granulated paint by Schminky here, and this one is called Deep Sea Green. I want to get a little texture in there, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to start just by kind of putting some water on here. I'm not too concerned about it covering every single spot. I can kind of play as I go, and I just want to make sure I'm getting up by my vine over here, because it's going to go over to here. I'm not quite sure if I want to bring it into my my leaves down here. Move it up a little and kind of get in here in between. I want to get right, you know, all of where this plumage is, especially want to get some of this color in there. So I am just very loosely just plopping some water down and right over my marks that I made before. So I'm going into the leaves. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my granulated Deep Sea Green, which is really kind of a blue turquoise. Yes, I got a puddle going. I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to just do it. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to start just putting some of this in here. Just using, I want to say, my intuition, because I'm just going by feeling here and how I'm going to want this to be. So this is my granulated color. I'm going to bring it, and this is also pretty much my darkest color that I'm using. I want to use purple too, and I think that's kind of equally as dark. But I gotta get, you know, some color behind these white feathers, and I want it to kind of go a little bit into this vine. And I'm just kind of mapping it out at this point. And you can still see what I've painted underneath it. And now I'm going to go up a little bit here just to get some of this color in here. And I'm kind of deciding now, I'm not going to go straight up and down with the page. I want to do a little bit of an angle. A little bit of an angle there. I don't have enough water. Over here, I'm just adding a little bit more water. And now I'm going to come in with quinacridine gold. Quinacridone gold. Okay, so now I'm just kind of thinking about, you know, where this color will land and end up. And what's cool is it's turning kind of a green. I like green, so it's coming, got some green going in there, and it's kind of mustardy at some points. That's really pretty cool. I like this quin gold. It's a beautiful color. It really kind of glows. I'm just using this big old brush. Big old brush. And make sure I'm kind of blending it on in. Because this is basically a tree. Whoops, I got it in my pink there. And this is very, very wet, so I am just kind of letting it be very loose on my edges. And I'm not fussing yet. I might come back and fuss a little bit, but now I want to get my purple. This brush is really kind of crazy. Okay, here's my purple. And bring it into these areas where I really, really want some contrast. And my purple and my gold is making its own kind of brown, which is good. It's a pretty kind of greenish brown. It seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? Just to kind of plop it on like that, but I think we're going to get some really nice results from it. Just coming in with some water, and I'm laying in some water on this edge. See this edge here? And I want to bring it out to my side a little bit there. I'm coming right over a little bit of my fern. Just want to make that very loose and watery. Okay. And I want it to all be cohesive with the whole painting, so I'm going to come over on this side, and I'm just putting background color in here. I'm putting a lot of water down here, making a very soft edge down by my leaves where it's touching my leaves. And then I'm going to come back up here with a bit of my purple, and my vine is behind there, so I want to make sure it's getting some of these colors as well, because when I paint the vine, it's going to have all of these colors in it. So this is my purple. Okay, kind of interesting. I know you can't see everything in the video, so let me try to move this a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of blend these down in here for now. And because watercolor dries lighter, it's going to be almost nothing right in here. And I'm going to put this whole edge, I think I got a hair from my brush here. There we go, get it off before it dries. Whoops. And I think this edge here, I'm going to bring this all the way over on one side. Because when you put it in a frame, sometimes I don't like that look where you'll see some white just jogging out here and there. There's also my little doggy's hair in there, I see. I can't get this one, I'll pull it off the edge. There we go. Okay. And how's that? Oh, that granulation is turning out really pretty right there. Very pretty. And I think the purple kind of has its own little granulation in it. And I like that you can still see all of my vine and some of these marks. Do I want to kind of fill them in a little more? The marks that we first made, you can still see those. So that's pretty nice. My little Quinn. I think I want to put a little bit of my sea green. A little bit more of that because I really like that granulation. So I'll put a little bit more of that here. I'm over and getting a little bit more and mixing a little puddle of it. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper with it right in here. And right here. Up here with my feathers. Whatever this plumage is, I want that deep. So I'm kind of intentionally dropping it in. So everything is very wet on wet. And I'm standing back and I'm looking at the overall depth of it. Make sure that everything has about the same amount here and there. softening up areas that I don't want a hard line. Just keep everything softer. And I'm going around my painting just with water on my brush, and I'm bringing it into the vine a little bit. These edges is where I'm really concerned at this point, that I want to keep them soft. So I'm really watching them. I'm going to turn my whole painting around here. Yeah, you can kind of making you dizzy. I hope not. You can kind of see that a little better though. I really love this blue color. So I'm going to drop it in a little bit more. And I'm starting to dry. Starting to dry. So I'm going to take some water on this edge up here. I want to soften this out. And I'm kind of just scrubbing it in a little bit with my water. Break up any of these super hard edges. Let me see if I can't scooch you down. So you can see I'm working in this area here. And see how this is already dried, but it's in a leaf. I'm not worried about that. It's going to be beautiful. You can see some of that underneath it. But I just don't want it to be too rough looking. I want it to look soft. So I'm just bringing in water. And I'm blending it out until it basically you can't see where it has been blended. Just want it to kind of go into the background. And I'm seeing a little bit of a few places here that would like to have a little bit more depth. So I'm going to have to add some more color. So as you're going around your painting, you're looking to see this, where those feathers go. And wherever those feathers go, if you want the white to show, then you definitely have to have something behind it, and darker is better. But now, that being said, I'm going to draw with some acrylic pens probably, or some micron ink, or I might use a quill and ink, keeping in mind that ink can fade, so you need to seal that before you frame it, because it'll fade a lot faster than watercolor will. And I'm just blending my edges out, just softening them up here and there. So I'm just kind of going around, making sure nothing's too drastic. Just with some plain water, and you probably can't see everything I'm doing, so I'm going to try to see if you can. Don't have too much room, but I'm just softening with this long brush. Okay, so I think I pretty much got that how I want it, and I think everything will be okay. So now I want to add, I'm thinking these same colors, I'm going to add some drips, and I'm looking at it overall. So you can see I've got some places with some interesting color and the granulation in there, and here's a nice big watermark, which I don't mind, but I'm softening. Right here is a big watermark, a bloom if you will. Just softening it in, kind of like it leaving that a little lighter there, so I will. But whenever you come back with really wet brush and you put it on paint that's already been drying a bit, you're going to get watermarks, which I do like them. So here's some here. I just didn't like it right there. Here's one here. So now I'm going to come back and get some of my purple. See if I can get some of it a little bit more clean purple, because I really like, well, I can see the purple in some spots. Maybe that's well enough. I'm going to put a little bit here. I think I need a little here. Very messy, that's for sure. I'm dripping all over the place. Get behind these here. And then come back in with a little bit of that quinacridone gold. I like that a lot too, and I think that's really pretty. I'm just gonna lay that in there. Have it come out a little. It'd be good into these leaves. Okay. Love that. You can see how intense this is right there. Love that. So now I'm thinking more. Looks good. I'm going a little more intense. Go into that. So this is that granulated deep sea green. And I'm just water softening it out into the background. Just getting that edge so that it doesn't have a weird place where it stops. I like that. Like that. So as I'm going, I'm just finding areas that I really like. And I'm just looking at everything and seeing where I might need a little bit more intense of the color. Love that gold in there. And that gold is reminding me of the tree, and I kind of just want this pattern. And I love that right there, so I didn't want to really go over that too much, but I did a little bit. But I do like that. And this needs to come down into here. So yeah, as you're going around, looking at it, think of the intensity of your colors and where the darker I can go with this, the better it's going to be, because the white will show up. Yeah, that's what I'm just watered down here now, bringing it over to the edge, trying to find a nice spot for it to stop. So yeah, so here we go. I'm going to move it a little bit, and you can see where I've added some of this gold here, and I have the gold up here. So now I'm thinking it needs gold at least in the 3 spots to draw your eye over. So now I'm getting some more quin gold, and there's some beautiful feathers up here that can use a little bit more intensity, and that's what I'm gonna plop them in there. And I'm kind of even thinking maybe just kind of going with that movement of those feathers and putting them in there. Then I'm coming back with some more water, and I can move this over a little bit, I think, and maybe there, so you can see how I've kind of blended those feathers up and out. Oh, there we go. I can exaggerate that movement. Oops, dropped my brush. Sorry. I don't know why the brush is doing that, but kind of just using it on its side, and I do like that. That's pretty cool. So I'm going with the way my feathers want to go out. There. Do I like that? I think I like that. That's kind of cool. It almost looks like another plant. You see that there? Just kind of went around. I think I like that. I'm going to leave that like that. And on this side, just bringing that movement in. Using the side of my brush. It's almost giving it a dry brush effect. Don't want to mess with that. I love that. I think this is doing pretty good here. Okay, so now I want to add, I think, some drips. So I'm going to get some paint. I'm going to get the Quinn Gold, and I want to put this, I think right here, I'm going to put like a puddle on here. And you got to use a lot of paint. A lot of paint needs to go there. So I am going to put that one there, and I'm going to grab my spray bottle now. So I just have a regular old spray bottle. And I'm going to tilt my painting up, and it's on wood, and I'm going to let it drip. Let them drip, and I'm going to even take my spray bottle. I'm going to come behind it, spraying that paint downward, and just letting her run. Woohoo! Letting her run. My poor little dog is sitting at my feet, and she just got freaked out. So, I'm going to bring this, get this a little more wet. And I'm going to grab both hands, both sides of my board here. And let it run, let it run, let it run, all the way down to the bottom. Pretty big feet because this thing is so tall. But yet, we're just going to let it run. We can even shake it. Alright. Got some of that there. I think that is beautiful. Now on the bottom here, and you can't probably see it too good, but I stuck my finger in it. So if there's a spot you don't like, just soften it out with your brush. And always just make all your mistakes intentional. That's what we're doing here. I have a mistake. But it's not a mistake now because I just made it part of my painting, and it'll be beautiful. Okay, so I like that runny spot there. So now I am going to take some more of my deep sea green, and I'm going to make some runs. So I got another squirt of that, and I'm making it very watered down. Well, loose, very loose, but I want intensity in my color. And I'm thinking like right off of these feathers here, and through my ferns and everything. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to put some of this there, getting it wet. Maybe make this go. Oops, I got some splatters. Oh, what a great brush to splatter with. Look at that. Haha. Great brush to splatter with. Wow, love that. Okay, so I'm just splattering right now. Put some splatters in here. And it's so wet, they're going to diffuse. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to spray from behind. Get my spray bottle going here. And I'm going to pick up my painting. And I'm going to just let her run. There's some running. There she goes. Straight up and down. Let her run. I'm making a mess, but it's okay. Now, I want this to run more here. Giving it a little bit more water to run with. And I'm just gonna come on down. Shake it back and forth sideways a little. Maybe get a little bit different pattern in my runs. There. Okay. Alright, we got greens, we got gold, we got blue. Could use a little purple. Let's do a little bit of the purple. Just got my purple all in my quin gold. Oh well. And let's do just gonna get dark under this, in here. We'll put a little. I'm not gonna do as much of this purple, I don't think, as I am the other colors. Get some of the pretty color in there. And I'm going to spray it. There we go. Get some water in there. And I'm going to lift it up again. And let's let that run on down. I'm probably wearing it. I sure am. I got paint all over my shirt because it's so big. Oh, what's that blue spot right there? A little bit of cobalt got in there. At some point my video stopped, and I'm not sure how much of that you got, but I hope you got my drips in there. If not, it's I just put a lot of water on here, sprayed it with spray bottle, held it straight up, and let my drips drip off of the one edge there. And then I'm trying to show ya. There's some drips there. That's what we did there. And I'll just show you all of the colors. So I put in here that cobalt violet, quinacridone gold, and deep sea granulated, super granulating paint by Schminckel. So those are the three colors I used in my background. And I really love some of these areas, and I love all this granulation right here. Let me see if I can't zoom you in. Oops. I think I can. There we go. Yeah, there you go. So I love how this granulated blue looks. I love this gold. Move it around a little more for you. I think I love how I got the motion of the feathers in there. I hope it's not going to be too much. And I love these intense spots where the quin gold, and you can still see all my motion marks underneath. So I think that's a good place to stop and just let it dry right now. And then I put some splatters on here and there, especially towards the top. And we'll just let it dry, and I will come back next, and I think we'll start on leaves or that trunk. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a long step-by-step videos along the way, but I hope that you'll paint along with me and let me know if you are, and let me know how yours is turning out. Here's the picture so far. I haven't taken off the masking fluid, so we'll do that next. I think we can do that. We're at that stage. So here's where you can see what we've done with the strokes, with the motion, representing the motion, and also the background of the egret. I don't think it's dark enough at this point. I'm not sure what I want to do though. So I kind of have an idea that I'm going to kind of define a few of those little sections where the colors, you know, go into a different color. I might just do that with some acrylic pens or maybe some micron archival markers. So I'm not quite sure yet, but that's going to be something I'm going to do almost last, I think. So I'm going to continue on today with the vine. So the vine is See, I got some drips kind of going through the vine. And it goes all the way up the side and up to the top where I have some more of the leaves. And then I also have some resurrection ferns that only come out when it's raining. It's pretty cool. They turn green and they're beautiful. And you would think that they're dead and all dried up the rest of the time, but they're not. So they come to life. That's why they call them a resurrection fern, right? So there he is, and we're going to start taking off some of the masking fluid. I'm going to use this little rubber pickup to take off the masking fluid. I think it's the best solution to do it. Like I said, you could use masking tape, or you can just use your finger. And I can start, you know, on a little piece here, you can see, just with my finger. A lot of times when you take off your masking fluid, though, it is going to take all your pencil marks with it, so you almost have to redraw it. Hopefully it's not going to do that too much, but you can see I'm just kind of pulling it right off, and wherever that masking fluid was, it's the blue stuff there, it protected, so now when I painted over it, it didn't seep under, and I have nice white line there, so which is great. I'm going to leave that white because it's going to be, you know, kind of the spine of those flamboyant feathers. So I can take my little pickup here and just roll it off like that. I like to grab it because otherwise you get a wad of it on your little pickup. And I like to pull it off of there as I'm doing it. So you do the same thing on the body here. Get it started, and you know, it kind of, masking fluid is not my favorite thing, and the reason why is because it kind of takes off a little bit of your paper, a little bit, depends on the quality of your paper. I've read that some of the papers really, you know, it takes off like the whole surface of the paper. Hopefully this is good enough quality, but there's always a spot somewhere that I missed, and there's a little dot of paint from the background color that I didn't want to be there. Yeah, so it's just not my favorite thing. I don't normally get nice smooth lines like I did here. I'm really happy with that. Really happy, and it's probably because I started out with a brand new container of it and didn't mess around with something that had been sitting around for a year, since I don't use it very often at all. So it's just a little bit of tedious work. I'm trying to be very gentle. I don't want to tear my paper underneath, which can happen. So I'm just trying to do it nice and slowly and just as gently as possible with the rubbing and everything on it. Another thing is you don't really want to leave masking fluid on your painting longer than you have to. I find that if I leave it on too long, that it's harder to get off, and it kind of adheres even more to the paper, so then when I pull it off, it wants to pull the paper off. I don't know if that's something that's common or if that's just been my experience, but that's the reason why I'm taking it off right now, because I can paint around everything pretty good. I mean, that's usually what I do instead of using masking fluid. But there was no way I was going to be able to paint around and get these little feathers nice and neat looking. I would have probably painted over quite a few of them, so I did decide to use it this time. So sometimes you just really, that's just going to be the easier choice. And that was the case here in this painting. So I'm just rubbing it all off here. And I'm really happy with how these little long feather spines have turned out. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. Because a lot of times, like I thought, it just doesn't turn out for me. So I might end up, you know, learning how to use it better and being a fan of masking fluid. I know a lot of people really love it. And an old way before they came out with masking fluid, they used to use masking tape. And just take the tape and cut it into shapes that went along with, you know, what you're trying to accomplish in your painting, and just kind of laying it down and burnishing it in and cutting it out so that the shape is perfect. I never have tried that. I watched my friend Sherry do it once and I was like, wow, I had never seen that technique before, and I don't think it's very easy. Didn't look easy at all to me. So, but you get smoother lines is what she said. That's why she liked to use it, because she could control, you know, the lines better, you know, your edges. But this is turning out pretty good, you know. And now, you know, that I can use my bleed proof white if I needed to correct some spots. You can see, I don't know if you can see that right there, the paint went through the leg where I had it masked off right there, and there's a blob there. Now if the legs were going to be white, I'd be like trying to figure out how to get that off of there, but they're going to be black. But if you needed to remove it, you know, there are ways, you know, to erase watercolor. You'd need to be patient. But what I would first start out doing is just like wetting that area with my brush, and then try to just blot, you know, very carefully and get some of the paint up little by little. You know, maybe do that 3 times or so, and it usually will soften out enough to where you don't have to worry too much about it. It'll blend in once you start with your watercolor painting on top of it anyway. So another way you could do it is with a Mr. Clean magic eraser. That works really well. I think it's got a little bit of an abrasive quality to it, so maybe it kind of scrubs the paper a little bit. And then another final way, which is my last resort, is with a scrubber brush. So you've seen me use those before. It's a very stiff bristle brush, usually comes in a set of 3, a small, medium, and a larger one, and it literally takes the surface off of the paint to where you're off of the painting to where you are left with white paper, pure white paper underneath it. But the paper's going to have a weird texture to it because it's not sealed anymore, I guess, or you know, it'll be rough and the paint will absorb differently in that area. Usually it'll really grab onto the paint. That, and with the Mr. Clean eraser I found the same thing too. So what I normally do is avoid all of that and just paint around everything. But sometimes it's just going to be like this. It's going to have these really fine little lacy feathers, and there's no way I would have been able to paint around that unless I spent 2 or 3 years on it, maybe. I don't know. I'd lose interest. I don't have that kind of attention span. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing here. So you can see I'm now getting up to the body area, and this isn't coming off too well right here. Very frustrating. So sometimes you can ruin a whole painting because you can't get the masking fluid off. So, you know, I'm kind of having that problem right in this area. I don't know why, but I am. But I'm going to work on it and get all this masking fluid off as best I can. And there's shadows under here, so it'll work out. It'll work out. With painting, everything is always kind of like a trial and error. And you never know how it's going to be in the end. Now you can see I just pulled that up and a little tiny piece of the watercolor paper came up. You know, so that's no good, because if I have to paint over that, it's not going to absorb the paint the same way as the spots that didn't have that. So another reason to avoid masking fluid. But it's a white bird. I'm going to be able to work around it, and you can't really tell. You know, I can tell maybe a tiny bit right there, but not much at all. It's not ruining the painting. It won't ruin the painting, but I have to be very careful. You know, it's the way I pulled it up probably, because I kind of pulled it upward, and you want to pull it kind of flat and back against itself, if you will. So you get some going, and then pull it flat against the painting again. you know, and that kind of helps things to release without pulling it. So when you pull straight up, you know, if there's a little catch, then it just grabs onto that catch and continues on. So it's, you know, don't want to pull straight up. And there's a little bit of a leaf there, or feather. So I'm going to pull it here. And this part's coming off pretty good, but it's a little bit of a tedious work, right? So just got to take my time. So I'm going to probably be sitting here for a good half hour peeling masking fluid. I'm not going to drag y'all into it. I'm going to turn the video off right now, and I'll come back to it when we do something more fun. Okay. I got all the masking fluid off, and I did have a couple trouble spots. So I wanted to point those out. You probably can see them. They're pretty obvious, especially this one right here. So I can't determine if the masking fluid is completely off and that's paint underneath, because it is the same kind of color. There, and some here, and then that one here, a little bit more here. And I had some on the bill at the top here. So what I did is I used a kneaded eraser, which is one of these really soft, pliable erasers here. So you can, like, you know, squish these. Oh, it's got a little something in there, but yeah, you can squish these and you can erase with them. So I just tried to erase just pretty gently, and that's about all I could get off. I couldn't get much more off, so I'm not sure how it's all going to turn out, but I think I can continue to work on it, and I can work around it and get some good results. But I'm not getting any more off with this kneaded eraser. This is the part that really bothers me, because these are lighter. That's a piece of the eraser, and I know that, you know, by the time I paint my feathers and things in here, because even though I'm painting a white bird, he's not necessarily going to be solid white. As you can see, there's no definition, so there's a lot of color that's involved in painting something that is white. So I know I'm going to be using some purples and golds, and especially in this area, you know, I kind of wanted, you know, to have a lot of shadow, you know, to show the underside. And this isn't too much of a problem, because there is, I can make that shadow. They have kind of like a ruffled feather right there in the front. The egrets and the herons do. And I can try to make that. I just can't get any more of that off. My next resort would be, I'm going to use the magic eraser. I will try the Mr. Clean magic eraser. I don't have any. I need to go up to the store and get some. But I did have the problem on the bill, and I didn't know if the paint, so like if this is watercolor paint and not masking fluid, I can paint over it. Of course, that's going to show through, but it'll look more like a shadow. But if it's actually masking fluid, it's not going to let the paint to adhere to the paper. So that's what I was really curious about. So I did paint over the top of the bill here to see, and it turned out fine. So I put a few little shadows on the top, put some shadows in here in the green area above his eye there, just to see. But I think, you know, without really wrecking my watercolor paper, I shouldn't try too hard, and I think I should just paint over it and see what I have. Worst comes to worst, I could use some gouache or something and, you know, paint over it where that's more opaque. So the gouache is like a opaque watercolor. It's Gouche, I believe how you spell that. Probably slaughtering that, but anyway, it is, you know, not so transparent, or it's more chalky. Covers up stuff is my point why I want to use it. Or I can use my bleed proof white also, which is a, you know, Doc Martin PH Martin bleed proof white, little jar. And I've used it in a lot of my videos. I'm sure that you've seen it. In fact, here, I'll get it for you real quick here. This is it here. This is the Doc PH Martin bleed proof white. That covers up anything. But if you put this on, like I couldn't paint over this now with that, because my watercolor paint if I put it over this bleed-proof white, it doesn't work very well at all. And this is very chalky, and it's not, you know, transparent or anything. It's kind of like correction fluid, if you will. You know, back in the old days, you know, when you typed and used your little whiteout correction fluid. It's kind of like that. I'm going to use this, though, to paint some lines in the fine little feathers in here. So I will be using this. I use this a lot, and I love this product. But I might be using it more than I think on my bird, but we'll see. But I think there's a way to continue on and keep going. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Okay. I will try a little bit with the magic eraser before we go on. And then I'm going to decide if I want to go ahead and paint my pathos or if I want to paint my egret, because I hate to get everything all done and really fall in love with my painting, then go to do the main subject and it not turn out. So, and then the whole thing will be ruined. But I'm going to work on that and see what I can do. What can I do? I'm back with my magic eraser. So what I did is I took one of the Mr. Clean magic eraser sponges and cut it up into little pieces. So how you use these is you get them wet first. So I'm just going to take a piece of my sponge and I'm going to stick it in the clean water, and I got it wet. So I'm going to take my spot here, and I don't know that this is going to work. It may not, but I thought we'll give it a try. And I'm just kind of going over it with my magic eraser. Now, the magic eraser disintegrates. It might, you know, ruin the texture of my paper. But I can see, I think, a little bit of progress. I see a little bit of progress. Yes. I can see it was a little bit of the masking fluid, because there it's coming off. There. Oh, this is good news. This is good news. This is all magic eraser bits. As you can see, they disintegrate. You've probably used them in your house for cleaning. Oh, so this is good news. So I'm going to work. Oh, it's peeling right up there. Good, good, good. Okay, I am going to go ahead and clean up a little bit more of this. And when I get it all ready, I'm going to be so happy. I was not liking that because this is why I hate masking fluid. Anyway, I will finish this up and come back when we're done. Okay, I'm done removing all the masking fluid, and now I'm left with, you know, my bird pretty cleaned up. I got most of it off. I'm not happy that I did wreck the texture of my paper in a few spots here, especially right here. Good thing these are fluffy feathers here, so they might look okay. But because of that, I'm not sure how my paint is going to react with the texture in the paper. So I'm going to do the egret first, because there's no sense of doing all of my leaves and my vines like I first really intended to do, and then the main subject of the painting not turn out. I would have wasted all my time. So I am going to go ahead and switch gears, which you have to do a lot when you're painting, because, you know, things don't always come out as planned. So I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to paint my egret first. Okay. So I've looked at a lot of pictures of egrets. I've seen these. They're called white egrets, because they're snowy egrets, and I think that they have like a plume on top of their head that they puff up as well. So it's not a snowy egret, but it is a white egret, and they're very large. They're big, like a heron, and you see them kind of hanging out in the trees, walking in the like shallow waters, wading in there, and they catch little fish and things to eat. And I've looked up on several of the free image sites that you can look at, and I found, you know, several of them. So this is kind of a combination of a couple of them that I found on those royalty-free spots. So we just kind of made up our own. So, you know, a lot of them, he has his head back like that. You know, that's part of the dance that they do. And then here's all of these feathers that they, you know, fluff out like that. And we're going to add quite a bit to these feathers, but I'm going to concentrate on the main body first. So, with my lightest touch of a pencil here, I can kind of see a little bit of what I drew before in here, but actually I didn't draw too much because, you know, mainly it's just continuation of these feathers, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to use gouache or that bleed-proof white to kind of paint over them, because I don't want the color to be different from the pure white of the paper and the bleed-proof white when I paint these really teeny fine feathers on here. So I want them to be, you know, very similar. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just trying to determine a couple things in here. I think that he's got some nice, you know, this is kind of like his wing area here. So he's got some nice full feathers that I just kind of want to very lightly sketch out. So let's see. So this is kind of like his little tail feathers. You know, I think that there's several kind of grouped together here. And then this is like a bigger feather. Kind of going in there, and maybe there is like a feather, maybe it kind of comes like that. These are very long feathers on the back, on their back here. So, you know, he's got maybe another one kind of coming in here. So I'm just kind of drawing these in kind of how I want them to be, because we're going to do a lot of shadows. So here, you know, there's another wing feather here, and he's, you know, kind of big, I think, kind of going down like that. And then I think that there's another couple feathers probably coming up from here. So I'm just kind of kind of drawing this in here, kind of freehand. And then there's another one. This is just that bottom wing. And these are really large, pretty nice feathers. And I think they're kind of rounded on the end here. And right about in this area is where all of these long feathers are attached. They kind of all come out of the back area. And this is kind of a little thing they flip up, and the feathers are all coming out. And then he's, you know, got this neck here, so this is kind of shaggy right in here, kind of shaggy feathers. And then he's got, you know, where his body comes in here, and his neck, you know, he's got some shadow coming in through here, you know, and around his face. So just kind of sketching those in really quickly. And like I said, I was kind of combining a few of the different egrets together. So I could go through a few little pictures here that I saved and start there. But I want to start with some shadows. So I want to really make this a little bit more dramatic, because you gotta have a lot of color in a white bird, or it doesn't look like he has any definition at all. So I am gonna mix up some peachy colors, some dusty purple, pink, maybe a little bit like a rose color in there as well. Maybe some greens, because he's got like a shadow, you know, under here. So kind of, maybe this should just go like that right there. And then these feathers come over. So let me grab my eraser. Okay, got my eraser here. So anything that I don't want in there, I want to erase. If I paint over any of these lines, they will stay there. So just kind of erasing them. And I want to use some salt on this. So there's a couple areas that are really fluffy, like right here in his chest. This is just fluffed out puffball feathers. And then up here too is just puffy feathers. So I'm going to start there. And what I'm going to do is use Moon Glow. Moon Glow. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. I'm just preparing a puddle of Moon Glow here. And I'm going to wet the area first. So I'm just putting the Moon Glow in there because I want some shadow in there, and that'll create a pretty shadow. It's by Daniel Smith. And this is just water at this point. I'm just putting some water on here so that it can flow very nicely. And I think all in this area right here where his feathers would be fluffed up. I'm going to put some salt and some Moon Glow. So find a spot on my palette. Okay, here goes the Moon Glow. And I'm just going to kind of concentrate it more in this little back area here. And I'm looking at a picture here on my phone that I downloaded. I think it's called Shutter. Or maybe I even got it from Pixabay. So anyway, you can find there's several sites. Okay, so now I have my Moon Glow in there. And while I am waiting for that, I want it to dry to get the shine off it. So you don't want it to dry all the way, but you'd want it to have kind of like a satiny shine to the area. So I'm gonna let that dry. And while I'm letting that dry, I'm gonna come down here and add the water. And this is where I got a little bit of the rough paper, so I'm really curious to see how that's gonna turn out for me. Where I've washed it off with my magic eraser. So I'm just kind of putting some water in here. And I'm watching this, it's still super shiny, but right here it's about the right part. So by the time I get a little bit of moonbeam on here, that should be working pretty good. Now he's got a shadow under here too, so that works out nicely. I just don't want a hard edge or anything anywhere. And I can see that texture right in here, see that? It is picking up on my bird a little bit, but with this salt, this might be a great technique to kind of hide that, huh? So I'm just going to put some water there, and I'm going to put some water up here and just kind of blend it into the body a bit. Okay. So now, I don't know if you can see it, but the shine isn't wet like this is wet, and this is calmed down quite a bit. And I am going to use this Mediterranean sea salt here. This is really thick. I just got this at Walmart. It's very coarse, I mean, so I think that this will be really cool for some really big spaces. So I'm just gonna kind of put them down. Ooh, they're really big. They're bigger than I even thought. So I'm gonna put them down kind of controlled. I don't want there to be too much or into one space. I'm just gonna try to place them, if you will, with my fingers here and just get this big old salt. Don't want it to look too contrived, so I'm gonna get a few places there that are just kind of random. And when you're putting salt on, be careful that when you get it to the edge and if it's wet, it'll absorb all that water and then bleed into your nice crisp edge. So you don't want that to happen. So before that happens, move it around a bit. Okay, so that's plenty of salt. I think this is ready as well. So I'm gonna put some salt in here. So what should happen is the salt kind of dissolves, and as it dissolves, it pushes away the paint underneath it, and it dissolves and it makes kind of like a crystal-y effect. Very nice effect for texture. Alright, so now we just leave it on there and let it do its thing. So it'll start absorbing some of the water that's left on the paper, and the salt itself will break down and it'll leave us a little crystal-y snowy pattern underneath it. And I think we got it all pretty nicely there. So I'm going to leave that alone, just let that set. Close my salt up. Okay, so coming back to the rest of it now. So in here is a shadow. So this is kind of underneath this big wing right here. And he has, you know, I don't like how I laid this feather out. I'm going to change this and just make this the bottom of his wing. So I'm just going to kind of take this feather and bring this one down to there. And maybe kind of like that. And then this feather here. Draw that run in. And then I'm going to have this one just coming right up to this one here. Like so. And then this will kind of be, you know, shaded underneath there. And then his little legs. So his legs, this one, there's going to be more shadow. And then this here is where this leg is kind of, you know, connecting in there. Like that. The pencil lines out of there. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to take some green. I'm looking at my salt to see if it's doing anything yet. Okay. So I'm mixing up a puddle of green. And I have kind of a sage green here. And I don't want it to be too dark. Got some quinacridine, stone gold too, so I'm going to put that in here. So I'm going to paint this shadow part and just get it wet. So we're going to do a wet on wet technique. And I'm going around all my little feathers here. And I'm going to leave that part white. So now this is all wet. You can see I still have a little bit of my green on my brush, but that's okay because that's what I'm going to add in. So this is reflecting off of what's around it, so it's green. Don't want to make it the same color though. And I want to make sure I've got my little bit of contrast, need contrast in there. And then I'm going to add a little bit more water to my brush, and I want to put some in here too. But I want it a little bit lighter. I'm coming in with my quinacridine gold, and I just want to add a little bit where I really am going to need that contrast. Just kind of drop that in. Okay, so now I see where my paper's rough, it just took off with that paint. I need to blend this in first. So it took off with that paint. So there's different things that I can do. I can, for now, ignore it and come back with some of the bleed proof white and cover it up. It's so much more, it's almost like a paste in the jar, and you have to water it down to get it to move, like just like watercolor paint. But I can do that, or right now I can take some water and some toilet paper, and I can just take a little bit of water where I don't want it to be, and I can take some of this really thin Scott's 100 toilet paper, and I'm just gonna press where I don't want it and just kind of lift it out. And don't use the dirty side again. Now go switch to a clean side, otherwise you're kind of printing it onto the paper again, which you don't want to do. And I can do this a couple times. Try to get off as much paint as I can. Get some clean toilet tissue here. And blot, get a clean spot. Blot, get a clean spot. And now one more time, rinsed out my brush. I really want to get off some of this. It's really grabbing where some of that paper compromised there. It might end up okay. I'm not giving up yet. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. It's just a little frayed there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to leave that alone. This is fine like that. Okay, so now I'm going to come up under his wing here. Putting some clean water down. Just putting some water in. And here's another spot that was a bad area. Right in here. Okay, so just making sure I've got water on there. And I'm going to do the same thing with the green. That side. And I'm going to kind of bring in my green. And making it a little kind of shaggy, but this is like the shadow underneath the wing there. I'm kind of bringing that right up into this salty area too. Not too much, just a little bit. And then under here would be shadow, and this is green. Paint behind his legs. Get up here again. And now I'm going to take a little bit of that moonbeam, kind of a gray purple, same as I used in these two spots. Just gonna put just a little. Where there's gonna be shadow here, and there's shadow here. There's shadow there. Just dropping it in. And with this kind of shadow thing, I don't know why I said that. With the shadows though, a lot of times we go too light, and I'm very guilty of that. I go too light. So we want to really kind of avoid being too light. Like that. Maybe put a little bit. Maybe a little like this. Rinse my brush, dry it off, and now I'm just going to come back, and that edge right there, I'm just kind of blending it. And just with what's left over on my brush, just kind of bringing this into little shadow in there. Rinse out my brush, and I'm just going to take some water, just softly go over these edges. Clean in this little line up there. I think I'll bring a little bit more of that moon glow. Like I said, a lot of times we tend to go too light-handed with the shadows. Right up into this. Got that salt in there. I'm trying to kind of go around it a bit. Rinse off my brush. Just got water here. I'm kind of looking at my picture, and there's all these really subtle little, very faint shadows. In there. Got this going on a little softer into this. kind of in the crook of his neck there, a little bit of a shadow coming into that. Right into there. Rinsing off my brush. And anything that's kind of rough or not, I can kind of blend in at this point. So I can see a little something going on with my salt here. I'm not seeing anything much here yet. I'm kind of thinking it's not going to work. I'm going to add just a little water around it. See if I can't get some of it to start moving, dissolving. And if nothing else, it might make some blooms, which will give me kind of the same effect in a way. A little bit anyway. Right, so putting that a little bit. Blending in a little. There, I think it's working on that. Oh, I got one stuck on my brush. There we go. Okay. Now we've got all of these kind of feathers. Oops, I want to clean that up a little. Let me get my brush. Just kind of cleaning that little. Whoops, there we go. All right. And then right in front of here is a shadow. And really that paper is really bothering me now. Where it got that texture. I'm just hoping it's going to end up looking like a bird feathers. Okay, I'm going to put some shadows in. So I'm going to get the little curve of his head there. Just putting some water in around his neck area. And then I'm going to end up, I think, going kind of on this side of him. So I'm going to get water. And I'm bringing this out. Oh, I'm kind of bringing it down. And then this is going to kind of go around it. So before I get too far, I'm going to come in with my moonbeam. And let's see here. So this is going to have shadow here. This has shadow under his, to make that round shape of his head. And then kind of coming into this little neck area. Oh, I have a little something, piece of unmixed up paint in my brush, I see. And then I'm going to bring this. Here's my paint. Here we go. Kind of down into here. And then this way. Getting some water on my brush here. Softening it. Rinsing it off, drying it off, and back. Putting just some water. Water on my little edges. Oop, there's a little speck of paint. Get that out of there. Yeah, and I think he'd have a little bit there too. So now I just got a clean, wet brush. Just softening. See how that just softens that right out? And a clean, wet brush. Let that water do the job there. Water in that one there. Okay, so that softens that out. And how's this doing? Not getting anything? And then let's see, probably the top of his head too. Maybe a little bit of shadow there. So get a little bit more moonbeam. And kind of, here's his eye, I think. And kind of surrounding the eye just a little bit, given that, you know, we kind of have this shape going on like this, like that there. So I'll rinse that out, and then I'm going to dry my brush off, and just with my wet brush, and then just soften that right on out. A little something there, okay. And on the inside as well. Okay. I think that's pretty good for now for this, you know, we can always go over it again. So you always can build layers up. So I'm actually thinking of using, I've got some opera pink, which is super bright. And I'm going to mix that in with my cobalt blue and make like a really pretty brighter purple. So this is opera white and cobalt blue, and I'm just going to dramatize this a little bit. So I'm going to put my purple in here. That's pretty, isn't it? I like that. So I'm just kind of coming over where I just put these shadows in and making them prettier. More striking. More striking. I just needed a little bit more color in here, I think. Rinse out my brush, dry it off, and soften. Might as well I'll get that texture of that paper in there, making it look like feathers. A little bit more of that purple in there. Just a little. Very soft. Rinse out my brush. I'm just softening it all in there. Trying to leave some good white areas as well. Watching it as it dries, so I can still come in and move it around like I want it to be. Okay, got a lot of those shadows. Now I'm coming in with some little bit of this quinacridone gold because I think he's got a little bit of sunlight. Just a little. Very watered down. You gotta be careful, gold and purple make green. Mud. They make mud a lot. But since I have, you know, some gold in the bottom here, you know, it kind of makes sense if there would be a little bit of gold shining through a little here and there. Yeah, where that paper got messed up, it really does show. But the good thing it's feathers, as it kind of goes with the feathers. But it really grabbed the paint. Really grabbed the paint. And I'm just going to come in here, see it there a little bit. That's where my salt is. And I don't think it's doing much, so it's not going to hurt to get it a little wet and see if I can get it to do something. If it leaves like little blooms, that'd be alright. Looking for some texture. With the finer salt, I don't have a problem, but this is that really thick, it's like little rocks. Maybe not the best. It's an experiment, so. But over here I see it working, so it must have been a little wetter since that was the second thing I did. Put a little bit of water on some of them. I see sometimes you can get some really dramatic salt effects, so that's what I'm looking for here. And feathers, and I just don't want that to look like what it is. The paper got wrecked. Over here. Maybe by putting some color in, might be able to rescue that. Okay, so just softening. Okay, so that's that. So now let's look at these kind of back feathers. So looking at some of my pictures that I took here, let's see if I can't pull them up on my phone here. Okay, so there he is. And where are these feathers? These feathers. I'm sorry about that, but we're going to do these long feathers here. And I was just trying to quickly find some kind of picture to show me what those feathers look like. But of course, when I'm in a hurry on my phone, I'm not going to find what I'm looking for, right? Okay. All right. I'm going to let this dry and come back to this in a few minutes. And I got to think about this a little bit. And I'm going to let that salt kind of melt and do its thing. But so far, where we've gotten some of our paper got, you know, kind of wrapped a little bit, this looks great. I don't mind that. I don't like that. Don't love this, but I think I'm going to cover up a lot of that anyway. So this is going to get covered up quite a bit. Yeah, it might end up camouflaging okay. I've got a little bit of a hard edge there. Soften it out there. All right. Okay, we'll come back. Come back to do these long feathers here and let this salt do its thing. So now we're going to paint a few black feathers. And I want to have some contrast because there's going to be these long white feathers starting at his shoulder here, coming down. So we got to show something underneath here so that those feathers will show up. So I'm going to come on in with that moonbeam once again. And I'm using a finer brush. I'm going to use a number 4 round. And I'm just going to come in and draw in. There's kind of almost 3 tiers of feathers in here, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to start with like this long feather on his back, and on one side I'm just going to come in, bring some water in, and soften one side of it. And a lot of this is going to get covered up, so I got to kind of keep that in mind. But I softened one side just with some water. So now I'm coming back in and I'm going to maybe, well, I don't want to do exactly right there just now because that's wet. So I'm going to end up putting another layer of feathers, kind of like that. Okay. Rinse off my brush. Let's bring in the water in on one side of it. That side. Maybe there's a feather here. Yeah, where that paper is you know, the texture's changed it and it's really grabbing. But like I said, we're going to have some long feathers coming down, so I think that they're going to hide it all. Some feather there. Bring this in. Just clean water on the one side. Softening it out. Here. Soften it. Just doing my best to kind of work with what I have here with my paper. So yeah, it's not exactly a success because of that, but it might end up being a pretty picture, and that's really all we want, right? Might not be technically perfect, but what is, I'm not, that's for sure. So always kind of come around again and make do a lot of stuff in layers of color. I'm just kind of drawing these feathers in with the tip of my brush. And a lot of them are going to be covered up, so creating a background in there. You can see that paper right there is all messed up. Soften it with water. Rinse it off. See what I can do here. That might be enough. Let's soften this one out. Just defining a few little feathers, carving them out if you will. Got a nice long feather. Okay. That. Okay. I don't know if the paper was messed up there too, or I know it is right here. I'm just gonna put a little line in there. More water. Okay. So, what else do we need? Maybe this. Bad. I'm just, very lightly putting in some little feather marks, like a herringbone pattern, just on a couple places. This nice long ones here. The long one. Don't think it's going to be a masterpiece, folks, but we are learning. We are learning what to do, and a lot of times when I think, oh my gosh, it's just such a mess, just quit. And if I don't quit, quite often I end up with a decent painting, and I'm like, wow, I was ready to just throw it all in. So at this point, what do I have to lose, really? I mean, I have, already this big piece of paper, which isn't cheap, right? So I have this huge piece of paper that I'm trying, and I think that, yeah, I just need to keep on playing with it and see what happens, because it could end up surprising me, which it has happened before. So never give up, just keep on going, and let's see if it's worth it. If not, we've learned something. We learned a lot of things from, having to troubleshoot. Try having a little problem with something, and we can really learn from our mistakes, as they say, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here. We're learning. And it's going to turn out. We're going to be positive, and we're going to just say, hey, yes, it's going to turn out really beautifully. Because there's more layers to be added, and there's still more we can do. So all my options are not exhausted at this point. I'm just continuing on putting a few little very loose details in these feathers. Just to try to make them look like these long, flowy feathers. Long, flowy feathers. Water, I think I'll soften this one right out. So now I have purple, I have moonlight, which is a gray purple. I have quinacridone gold on here, and then I mixed that opera pink and cobalt to get this really bright, beautiful purple here. So he's got quite a bit of contrast in him. And now we can paint his legs. I think his legs are going to be pretty easy. So I'm just going to get me some Payne's Gray. And I'm going to mix me up a puddle. It's not, kind of like whole milk consistency, kind of on the thicker side. And I'm going to take a little bit of a bigger, well, no, I'm not. I was going to take a bigger brush, but you know what? I always end up making the legs super big. So they are black, his legs. Yay, because we need to be able to cover some stuff up. So I want it to be nice and even, so I'm going to do wet on wet. So I'm putting water down first, spreading out my water, and and I'm working kind of the leg that's farther away from me so I don't lean into it. Don't ask me how I know that that's a problem because I have done it before. So I don't want to drag my arm into it, so I'm going to go ahead and do the one furthest away from me first. Okay, so there's my water on my leg. This is my Payne's Gray. So I'm gonna come in and paint like a little stopping point where his leg kind of starts right here. Okay, like that. And then I'm coming in with my Payne's Gray. Now, I kind of want it to be light enough so that I can come back in with my micron pens and draw a little texture in his leg just for fun. So it's got to be able to show up. So if I go dark, like almost black, then you're not going to see that. And I'm using kind of the side of my brush because I want to make a nice clean line. So I'm not using the very tip. I'm using kind of the side, if you can see that. And just continuing it down to make a clean line. It's kind of hard to talk and paint at the same time. So, coming back in now. Gotta get some more paint. And there's a leaf right there blocking the end of his leg on purpose. Because he's got his feet in around the branch, and the branch has the resurrection ferns growing on it. So you're really not seeing his complete foot. Still using the side of my brush to make a clean line. And right there I had to use the tip because I got some details. Alright, so there is his leg. I'm going to put a little darker here, because that would be behind and be in the shadow a little bit. Straighten her up. There we go. And this whole side, I'm going to go for the darker Payne's Gray. I'm shading. And down this side. Just thicker Payne's Gray. Okay? Now we can do the other side the same way. So first determine where the end of his white feathers are and where his black legs start. Using the side of my brush. Oh, I forgot to put the water down. Let me do that. Let me put water on here. Sometimes when it's a smaller area, I don't put the water down because the paint is going to stay very wet the whole entire time. But sometimes I need that little time where it can flow into whatever else I'm working on. And that's when I want to put this water down first, so that it stays wet and the paint will move, and it'll move evenly and flow together. So I'm using the side of my brush, going down the leg, just using water. There's a little bit of Payne's Gray in my brush, but that's okay because we're painting it darker. If we were going lighter, that color would show through. And it would if it was a different color, but it's the same color. It's all Payne's Gray. I I very rarely use black, and a lot of watercolorists do not use black, just because it kind of draws your eye right to that dark black and almost stops your eye in its tracks when it's looking at the painting. So we like to keep it all like a lighter shade or different shade, like purple instead of black, or you know, a dusty mauve or something. So Payne's Gray is a gray, obviously, because it's called Payne's Gray. Whoops, see, I always do that. I get out of my line and then my leg keeps getting fatter and fatter, which is why I decided to go with the smaller brush. Because they can get some tree trunks going on there. Also helps if you look ahead of your brush. If you look ahead of your brush, you know, where your brush will follow where your eyes have been. There's a little fatter area back here, kind of like his knees. So let's see, we're gonna doing the same thing as we did on the other leg. I have some little ferns that are over in front of his leg there, so I'm kind of painting around the little tips of those ferns here. I'm using the tip of my brush, and that will be that one there. Bring that right into my fern. Okay, and then I'm coming back with the darker Payne's Gray on the one side where I think there is a little bit of shadow behind his leg. Just give him a little interest, make his leg look like it has a curve, you know, that it's rounded and not so flat. Just coming down the one side with the darker, and you can still see the lighter side, so when I want to draw in a little bit of the texture on the leg, it'll still show. Leave that out there, so just leave that like that, and maybe right here where his leg is going to bend, there's probably a little shadow right there. Okay, I like that. And this is still melting, this salt, so I think that's all we're going to do for now on him. And we're going to let him dry, let the salt do its thing. Oops, I can see a little spot here. There we go, good thing I saw that while it was still wet. I didn't like that. Blend it in. Okay. There's that spot, and we'll just let this dry. Okay, I decided to get out my watercolor pencils. These are by D.D. Praise. These are the Ocean Woodland watercolor pencils, so they have no wood on them. But I'm just kind of drawing in some of my details here a little bit. Trying to kind of get these. Some of these lines need a little bit of help. Little texture here, so kind of just shading with this kind of grayish one here. It's got a color. Doesn't really say a color on it, but it's a pretty kind of purpley gray, kind of like the moonbeam. And I'm just kind of drawing in a little bit of these shadows in here. And then I can take water. Let me show you that. So here I just kind of made a little shadow, and now I'm just taking my water on my brush, just plain water, and just turns right into like a liquid watercolor. Pretty fun. Fun stuff. See that? Blending it all in here. So using it, you can put it on. I think it's just the paint in the pencil form. And then you can put it on and use the water to activate it. And it'll dry a little lighter also. But here I drew in a lot of the details of my feathers as well. And so now I can come back with my water and just kind of paint them in where I want them, and like especially I think some of the shadows between the feathers. And it kind of makes a little bit more of a purple color, which I really do love my purples. A little purple there. So I'm just coming in where these feathers overlap and making a soft edge on it just by adding water. So I'm not doing anything realistic. I mean, that's not my style anyway. I like things to be whimsical and kind of just out of my imagination. So I think this is kind of fun, drawing in these things. I love to draw. Just bringing in my water over my watercolor paint. Drawing in those feathers. I didn't mean to put the feathers in this way, but you have to kind of shift, if you will, because of the texture of my paper, so I want it to all look beautiful together. So I have to think about changing my initial thought process on my bird here. So he's not, you know, exactly what I imagined when I started off, but he can still be a beautiful piece of art. Just going around my feathers. I'm using that little brush here, the number 4 round. And I'm going to try to be patient and let it dry a little and see what I have. So if I look from afar, it looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to also draw those feathers over the top of this too. So keeping that in mind. So this is all background really. So here's my pencil now. And I just want to kind of add, so his neck. I'm going over here. I don't know if my arm's in the way. It is, isn't it? Let me try to stand up and get behind this so you can see. So I'm just kind of sketching in these kind of loose, this is a loose kind of feathers here. Kind of sketching them in. I'll go over with my water. And then like in his neck here, he's got some little feather ruffles here and there. And I'm following, you know, what I have underneath here. Making some little kind of ruffled feathers in his neck here, just a few. This with my watercolor pencil. And I I think I'm going to bring one down here. Like that. Let's see how that looks. So I'm going to grab my little brush and just kind of get that watercolor paint activated under there and soften it out. A little more water. So I haven't used these pencils yet. This is really fun. Something new to try. I like it. I'm just using the tip of that brush and going over where I drew with my watercolor pencils. To soften them out and blend them in a little bit. And you can see I took the salt off, still got a little on there. Just brush it off, loosen it up with your fingertips and brush it off like that. Just brush it off. And you can see it kind of made a little mottled effect under there, kind of fun. Give a little texture. And I'm just trying to make these little shaggy little front, these puffy little feathers here. Make them shaggy. Got my pencil here. I'm just sketching it. And now I'm looking at my salt pattern here. And I'm just kind of letting it all go together. I'm working with what I have painted here underneath. I'm going to come over this way now. Kind of sketch in those shaggy feathers. And come back with my water. Get that watercolor moving, softening out some of those edges. So it's almost like drawing with the colored pencil and painting. You're getting that soft effect. So it's a combination. And here I'm putting all this purple and golds and different colors into my bird. But he still looks like a white bird, doesn't he? I don't think he looks like a purple bird. Still looks like a white bird. And we're getting that nice flowy watercolor effect. And we can have different shades in there just by using a little bit more water and moving that around. Now this part here doesn't have those feathers over it. These are behind. So we're not going to be doing too much more to this. I'm just kind of getting some shaggy strokes, brush strokes in there. I think that we've kind of accomplished that. Very nice. So get some of these white tips a little covered more there. They were glowing a little too much for me. There we go. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing up here where all these feathers come off of. I'm going to do the same thing as I did here. So I'm coming around. I'm just taking my watercolor pencil, just kind of drawing in some shaggy marks. I can feel there's a little bit of salt there yet. Get rid of that. I can hardly budge it. There we go. Oop, that's a rock. Okay. Some marks in there. Getting my water now. Moving it around. Shaggy, think shaggy, shaggy, shaggy. Just activating that watercolor. And I can always get white and go over some of this if it gets a little too dark. But I'm thinking, you know, all these feathers still have to be drawn in, so I want to make sure that there's a background so that they show up. Now I'm just kind of putting a shadow in here, just with the water and activating that watercolor pencil. Just want to get this underneath part, have a little bit of shadow. In this layer also. A little bit of shadow by activating that paint and moving it around. Okay. And now I think, so this might be a little ruffly there. I just want a few more these kind of ruffly little feathers. In here where his neck is turning. Kind of give me the direction of my feathers here. And then here, this is more of a shadowy area. And then, you know, where that paper was a little roughed up from that sponge, that's okay. I'm gonna make that work. Making that work. Yep. And over here, kind of making that a little darker. Let's let's see what we got here. Let's get the water going. Activating that watercolor pencil. Now there would be a shadow on this side because his head would be covering. I think all in through here would be a little bit of a shadow from his face, his head there, kind of covering that area, if you will. You know, it'll be over the top of that area. He is looking more and more purple though. We'll see. We'll see how he turns out. I can always add the white, the wash. That area there, and then let's come back in and do a little bit more with these. Little shadow areas. And then I gotta think about that a little bit. So here's where his leg is coming up. So I'm gonna color this whole little area in with my pencil. That. So let me take my water now. In. So I just painted it wet and I got a hard line, which is what I wanted, a little definition right in here. Straighten that a little there. So I can see a lot of shadows coming in, and it's going to be fun to draw on top of this. Get a couple little defining marks in here, following my drawing. That. And then I think all under here. I'm just going to take him and I am going to shade in all under this whole area of these feathers. Kind of make sure that they look like they're sitting on top. Right? I'm going to take my water. Be careful not to get too far into my feathers. Can you? I hope you can hear me. I know I'm talking a bit soft because I'm concentrating and I'm not thinking about talking as much as I am painting. So I'm just being a little, concentrating a little bit there. Okay. I'm softening it into my gold area. A little more water. Okay. All right. Now his head's looking rather too soft, isn't it? So I gotta paint around his eye. I think I'm gonna finish his face next. So we're gonna let this dry for now. What do I think, right? About this area, and maybe bring it a little bit of shade, shadow right in there. A little bit. Like that. Oh. All right. So he's getting some definition. We got to do the bill and his eye next. Okay, try to change the angle, and I hope you can see it a little better because we're going to do the eye and the bill and get that part all taken care of. And that's when he really starts to take on some personality, when they have a face. Okay, so the eye itself, let's start there. It is yellow. So I've got me some light lemon yellow, and I'm just going to fill in all this area around his eye. And I'm going to leave just that little bit of white unpainted. Okay, so I've got that part done. And now I'm going to move on to the bill because I want this part to dry completely before I do the stuff that's around it. But here's the bill here. Now the bill, that's really pretty. It's got some orange in it and some gold in it. And it can be a little bit of purple on the top. So I've already got some gold colors in there. So now let's go to, I think like orangey red, really dark orangey red. So here's my orangey red. Okay, so I am going to take this now and kind of where his mouth goes. Okay, so I'm going to start right from behind his eye, starting there, and I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge here of his bill, the tip of his bill. There, like that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of red there, and he has a nostril, right about there. And I accidentally stuck it in my water instead of my red paint. And look what I did. Well, you're catching me on a great day today, huh? I don't know. Okay, well that's okay because there's going to be purple in there. And I'm going to put some orange in there. So I'm just going to blend them. Blend them in. He's shady. He's shady guy right there. Okay, so then right under this red, while it's still wet, I'm going to let that dry. I'm just going to put a small thin line of yellow, and then that'll kind of make it into kind of an orange. Can get that to blend. Okay, so there's my a little bit of yellow, and then I'm going to take orange. And I'm going to put that on the bottom side of his bill. And I'm going to start it right up here. And leave that yellow there. So now I just rinsed off my brush and I went ahead and wiped it off also. And I'm just coming back over that orange little edge and just softening it in. Just softening it in there. Okay. And so now he's got this beautiful green, and this green will go behind his eye here. But I'm going to go and put in my purple. So from this red line, it's going to come like that. So get my purple. And my purple, I got contaminated with my gold a little bit. So I got to get a little bit of fresh. I'm sorry. I gotta get some fresh purple because I want it to be a beautiful, beautiful purple. So we got some of this cobalt blue and also some opera rose. And I'm going to take this from the tip of his bill. So here's his nostrils. Okay, so it's going to kind of go above. His bill there. I'm going to come back with a little bit of cerulean blue. Kind of put that color in there. Blue. Purple a little brighter, but it's gonna come kind of up this way. I think needs to be a little longer. And I don't know if I can do that. more intense. Oops, some water on my hand. I'm having a hard time today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Can't get things straight. Okay. There we go. Fix that a little bit. Okay. And I'll bring it in more here. He's got a lot of different shades. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to come back. And this is now dry around his eye. So I'm going to take my lime green. This is phthalo yellow green. Go around his eye. Okay, there's the beak and his eye. See if I can't move in a little closer. See his eye. And then I'm going to move out so you can see how he's looking with the whole bird. So he's got some contrast. He still looks like a white bird, which is what we're hoping for. And I'm going to slowly move back. Try not to make you dizzy. So you can kind of get the idea. Move to the side because he's standing this way, isn't he? There, that's what he's looking like so far. Move down his legs. Okay. So we still have to put all those showy feathers in. So we're going to have to do that next. Okay, my egret's all dry now. Now I want to start working on these long feathers here. So what I have is this long, I don't know if you can see, thin brush here. This is a nail art brush. It's a liner brush, 25 millimeters. So it's, you know, for doing nails and stripes on your nails. So that's what this is. Came in a set of 5 with different lengths of the bristles, but they're all about this fine, which is really nice. Okay, so I'm also using my Doc P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White. Say that 3 times. Anyway, there's my Doc P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White. And I've watered it down, so I don't know if you've seen it before. It's like a jar, and it's titanium, so white watercolor. Oops, a little crash there. So I've mixed some already in my little dish, so it's in the middle. You can't see it because it's white, But I'm just gonna load my brush up here, and I have a little test strip here. Now, you know, you could do this different ways. You could do it with a gel pen, ink pen. You could also do it with gouache, which is a opaque watercolor, which kind of is what I'm using with this .ph Martin. So I'm just going to take it and use the length of my brush to kind of bring it out. So you can see how thick the line's going to be right here. A little closer for you. I got my little scrap paper out. Only thing I really want to be careful of is when applying this is that I don't have any little droplets on my brush bristle. Like there's one right at the tip. I don't know if you can see, there's a little tiny droplet at the tip there. I want to even it out on my bristle. Otherwise I'll get a big thick spot where that is. And using the whole body of the brush, I can do like really fine strokes with this. Okay, so I'll put this aside. Get my white going here and start painting. This is going to take a long time. Long time. Might take me my whole entire day, who knows. But I just have my white in here and I thinned it down so that it'll stick nicely to my brush, but in thick enough where I can see it. Okay, so we're gonna start. Let's just start right here. Let's do this one. I think you can see that. Where is my line? I'm trying to get in my camera's view. It's kind of hard on such a large painting. I'll move it over a little. So here's the leg, so I'm going to start here. Okay. So these just kind of come down. Very fine. I have a fern there that I'm going to have to work around. And they're just kind of long. Now see that droplet on there? I don't want to be careful not to have that on there. So I always got to look at my brush. I'm using the body of the brush. I'm just making these really fine, wispy feathers, really close to each other too. Watch for those droplets. I probably should have painted the fern in the background of this first. I have to come back over and touch up. So I'm going to be doing this for a long time. Long time. And I think I'll get better at it as I go along. Really try and remember to lay those bristles down because they don't want to make much of a mark if you don't. But I have trouble, for some reason, I see a lot of people drawing on their watercolor paper with their white gel pens, and I just can't get them to show up, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, if I am, or if that's just the nature of the gel pen. But I bought several of them, and I just don't get what's so great about them, to tell you the truth. Go, so you can kind of see what we're doing here with these long, fine, wispy feathers. I keep going back and getting those droplets off of it. But this bleed proof white is pretty nice. Nice little trick to have in your bag of tricks. They were just making these really fine. Fine. Little wispy feathers. They could even be finer than what I'm getting them, but I think, you know, when you view it from afar, they're going to appear very light, very fine. And then when you come up to another feather, like this one here, it's just going to continue and overlap. So I'm just going to go up one side of a whole entire feather. And they kind of are hanging down. Oop, that one got a little thick. I'm not going to worry about it. If they do get a little thick sometimes, I think it'll be okay. But I'm going to try my best to get them as neat as possible. Really spend a nice amount of time on my painting so that I know that it's what I wanted in the end. And something I can be proud of. Now for me, it doesn't matter how long I spend on a painting. Like, I'm not in any hurry. Because when you're in the business of selling your art, you can sell prints. I have all kinds of stuff that I sell: trivets, coasters, pot holders, magnets, air fresheners, towels, tote bags, cutting boards, all kinds of cool stuff, mostly for the kitchen, but it's all with my art's images on it. So one painting can go a long way, and for years and years. I mean, there's still, you know, Van Gogh, they print, you know, all the tote bags, and Monet, and, you know, forever and ever, those images are alive. So it's more important to take your time and paint it as best as you can to your ability, because you can make other things from the image itself, and it can live on forever. So we're just gonna try to do that, and we also want to enjoy what we're doing. So this is kind of meditative for me, and I enjoy that of my art process. Little drop. So yeah, do something that's relaxing for you. This is kind of mindless. I could be, you know, sitting here watching a movie or listening to a book on tape while I do this. And just, you know, kind of be a little therapeutic. Some of my art, I don't want to take a lot of time with it. I just want to go loose and free and very intuitive and nothing planned. I get in those moods too. And then sometimes I just want to work on a project for a long time. You know why? I think the hardest part is thinking of a painting and laying it out, you know, doing the composition on it. So sometimes I just don't want to think that hard. And then sometimes I'm just super inspired by something, you know, that I saw. This morning I was walking my dogs, and they stop, you know, to smell every 2 seconds. And I thought, oh, they're sniffing on something. So when I tried to get them to come along, you know, it's been a while, they got to sniff. I looked and saw down what they were sniffing at, and I didn't realize there was a little tiny baby bird with his mouth open. He thought that they were coming to feed him or something. He was so precious, and he was just young. I mean, he couldn't have been hatched more than a couple days. I'm so glad the dogs didn't want to eat it. So I had no idea that's what they were looking at because it was just so tiny and in the grass there. But you know, it made me think, oh, so cute. I'd love to paint that little precious bird. So I probably will here in the future do a little bird's nest or something with a little baby bird in there. I love birds. Don't know why, but they kind of speak to me. Love birds. Oh, that got a little thick there, but you know what? So like here's the other end of this here, and once I start doing this, it's going to get thicker too. And that's okay. I really want all these feathers to show up. That's kind of the best part of the painting, you know, all these little tiny show-off feathers of these egret. Great egret. So that's the whole thing of why I wanted to paint this, is because I see them with this plumage, like in February, I think March, maybe February, March is their mating season. And I can see them in this plumage and they're puffed up. I live in La Belle, Florida, which is near Immokalee, Florida, and State Road 29. On State Road 29, it's a lot of farms for vegetables and produce, and not a whole lot of, you know, there's a lot of fields and water where these birds can wade in the water. And I see spoonbills, roseate spoonbills, and wood storks. And I see these great egrets just kind of preening on their feathers, you know, in the trees or in the shallow waters. And that's where I find the spoonbills too. And it's always so exciting when you see them all puffed up in their plumage there. And being from Michigan, we have egrets in Michigan also. But I don't know, I guess I lived in the suburbs, so I wasn't, you know, kind of out in the country where I could see them like this. I had no idea that's what they did. And there's snowy egrets. This is a great egret. And there's cattle egrets and different colors of egrets. So egrets and cranes, I think, are something we see quite a bit anyway of down here. So, oh, that's going to be cool. So some of the feathers are kind of wavy. They're so fine, you know. They kind of wave into the wind. So I kind of forgot that when I first started, but now I'm thinking, okay, I can add a little bit of this wavy, wispy kind of thing. And as fine as I can make these, fine, because they're like a thread. They're so little. You see, I'm working my way up my feather. Just painting all the little, what would you call those, little side feathers in there. Every once in a while I'm dipping my brush, making sure my water, it's wet enough. And keep watching for those little driplets. Keep wiping those off if you see them. Activate my paint a little more, give a little more water in it as it's drying. And I think this Doc Martin pH White, a bleed proof Dr. P.H. Martin bleed proof white. Boy, that's a mouthful. Anyway, is about the same color as my watercolor paper underneath. So where we've masked this all off, I don't see any color change, which is what I was hoping for. I didn't want to have to paint those as well. I'm going to have to when it comes up into the bird. I'm going to have to paint that part in. Just going along. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. I will show you what it looks like after I'm all done. But I wanted you to get the gist of what I'm doing, and also, you know, so that you could see where we cross over. So now all of these feathers come from the back. So on his back, you know, he's got this little, let's see if I can get it in focus for you. Here we go. In this area right here, they all kind of stem from this back. So these feathers are gotta come in front. See that? And some of them are behind. So like, you know, I can leave some of these behind without that. But what I want to do now is, so here's my feather. You're not going to be able to see it too much because it's on the white, but it's still there. So I want to make sure I cross it over and then get a little bit right there. Okay, so then here is the other side of that feather, and I have to make it connect from there to somewhere up here. And in a nice smooth stroke. Doubt if I'll be able to do it all in one stroke, but I've got, oh, big drop there. So I'm just going to take it right up here and bring it down, and now I'm looking at where I want to end up, or was anyway. Now my hand's in the way. And I'm connecting those feathers there. And I'm going to come back up here and just fix a little where I started to run out of paint on my brush. Okay. So now I have a little bit thicker here. I have that, it's kind of the spine of my feather there, and I'm going to continue this all the way up into that. And so here's, you know, another one. So I'm not necessarily connecting at the same spot, but I'm just kind of bringing it around. Load up my brush a little more. Got a little bit of a drop there. I think it's going to be, yeah, it's fine. Oops. Because this can be just a little thicker right here. And bring it right into this feather right down there. And then here's, like, some of them can be behind, some can be in front. So I'm going to make this one kind of come in front still. So this is also the reason why I wanted to use the watercolor pencil rather than like an acrylic pen. The acrylic pen, it's thicker, and so then if I want to paint on top of it like I'm doing now, it's just going to be harder to do. Whoops, the wrong one. There we go. Okay. Like just wetting my brush, getting it all loaded really well with the paint here. Okay, so now I'm finding another feather. So that one there. So let's say it's going to start from here. And I'm going to bring it down. And I'm looking at where I want it to end up with my eyes. Ran out of paint. Oops, there's a droplet. right into this one here. Need more paint. Need more paint. It would be really hard to get this perfect. And it looks like they're so perfect when they're, you know, when you see the bird, they look so perfect. They're beautiful, but I think that this is going to work out pretty nicely. Okay, here's a nice dominant one here. So let's start it. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to start it up here, and I'm not starting them all in the same spot. Here's my brush, so I want to go to here. Here is my feather. And I'm looking at the spot I want to end up. Not looking right at my brush. There. And wet my brush a little bit more, because you know this paint is drying as I go. We gotta keep that consistency going. There's another one here. See that big drop? We'll let that drop off. More paint on the brush. Connect that one. Put this one here. Loading up my brush. So yes, I'm just going to continue doing this. I'm going to leave some of them behind, and you know, as many as I want to fit in the front here. And I'm going to, like especially here, I think would be a really good one. Here's right there. Keep loading my brush as I need to, and I want to go over to here, so I'm a little off course. But I think you've got a little bit of wiggle room because there's so many of these overlapping feathers that I'm kind of not going to notice that it's not exactly perfect. So there's like two behind there, we're going to say. And this one can go into that one. Load up my brush again. And look at where these are coming from. Must have ran out of paint on that one. Let's redo it. That's easy enough to do. Okay, so I definitely got that one in there, and then got some more here. So not hard to do, but maybe a little time consuming, but think of it as therapy. You'll have lots of time to think, watch a movie, learn something on YouTube while you're painting, listen to a book. Be doing this for hours. A little bit where they cross over, get that nice smooth transition there. Okay, so now I'm going to come back. I got those little front feathers loaded, and then these ones I'm just going to continue painting them on, crisscrossing them, giving them a little tiny bit of movement, not too crazy, because they do just kind of lay there perfectly. Yeah, a little too thick. Let's see if I can't thicken up the spine a little bit right in there. There we go. That fixes it. So hey, you can correct things. And then I'm going to come all the way up into my bird. Do that one again. So now when I'm coming to the legs, now this feather goes in front of the legs. But you can see there's some behind there. Those ones will go behind. So I'll just be thinking of this stuff as I paint. And I'm just going to come up, and then following that spine, meaning these long things, all the way up. They're all going to crisscross and lay together. Okay, so then to show you, just to show you as we come down here, so now here's another feather here, so it's going to also, I'm just going to take it and paint right over it. Some more water. It's not working too good for me. Let's see, where were we? Right about here. Okay, so here you can see some of them going on the other side, which I can continue up, into here. Then most of them are just going to be on one side. Okay, so this is going to take a lot of time, so I'm not going to have you watch me this whole entire time. I will come back in my next video. This one here will finish up. I'll go ahead while you're in between time, so you don't have to watch every single stroke. But I will come back and show you a picture at the start of my next video is what I'm trying to say. So you'll see the entire egret, and then in the next video we'll move on to some of the leaves or the trunk, the little vines trunk there. So I think it's going to turn out really fun. I'm excited about it. I was really worried, when some of my paper got damaged with my white eraser, but, I put the salt in there. This I didn't put salt, but it looks like I did, just like that. So I think it turned out really well, and I did check, to make sure it didn't make like a little hole in the paper or anything. It's fine. It was just, the very, very surface kind of got roughed up a bit. So, but it looks fine now with what we did. So I was kind of thinking I'm going to have to, scrap this whole painting, but right now I'm loving it and I'm having fun with it, and I'm going to continue on. I think it's going to turn out good. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and until then, I will see you in the next video, and I hope that your art journey is full of peace and lots of love. Bye-bye now.